Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you for stopping by. Let me start with this tweet from Holger. S&P 500 future trades in lockstep with the China yuan. And I thought to myself, that's a very precise response to Trump's next level gaming. On the 27th of May, I said Trump is highly tuned to the markets and in fact something of a 21st century artiste. His positive trade war tweets are timed around the US market hours and designed to soothe, massage and finesse US asset prices, and he turns more negative in Chinese trading hours. And I said, this is next level gaming. There are few leaders I can recall that have appreciated the purity of the market signal and played the game at this Yehudi Menuhin level. And therefore, that's a very smart response, isn't it? You're showing President Trump that you can put pressure on the US equity market very, very effectively. Markets now see a 100% chance the Fed will cut rates in September, and odds for a 50 basis point cut are at 38%. And this is really an extraordinary rally we've witnessed. The 2-year US Treasury yield has almost halved since November last year. Raoul, who I have to give credit to, has been very bullish, the Eurodollar market. Eurodollar interest futures can and will trade through 100, eventually negative rates. This is the 6th contract continuous Eurodollar chart as an example to clarify the point. He's talking about negative 2% interest rates. The yield on the UK 10-year has fallen to its lowest ever. And we wrote about this wizard of Oz level moves in the markets. 10-year US Treasury yields have fallen for 7 straight trading days, the longest streak of declines since September 2012. And that speaks to bond yields in tilt mode, something I wrote about at the beginning of June. The 10-year yield has now dropped below 1.72%. It was 3.2% back in November. And it's absolutely round-tripped because it was around these sorts of levels when Trump came in. Then you had that huge sell-off to above 3, and now we're back where we started. 27th of May, I was writing about the Chinese currency, and I said, if this all turns ballistic, as is my baseline scenario, then this is going to fly through 7 like a hot knife through butter. Home Thoughts, the map of the Milky Way, shows our galaxy is warped in an S shape, according to this report of the New Scientist. Generally thought to be a flat disk consisting of some 250 billion stars. The new map suggests the disk isn't flat, but instead is twisted into an S shape. Sandy Island, Anguilla, this off the Anguilla mainland, is a spectacular speck of sand with just enough room for a restaurant shack. A few dozen lounge chairs and a beach the size of which depends on the tide. You'll quickly discover that Sandy Island's eponymous beach shack serves up the best barbecue crayfish in Anguilla and a killer rum punch to wash it down. Arrive by private boat or the island's daily water shuttle, all subject to a sometimes very wet landing. Political Reflections, Article 370, Kashmir is now in a communication blackout, according to the BBC, in a state of lockdown a day after it was stripped of special status that gave it significant autonomy. Landlines, mobiles, internet were cut off on Sunday evening, yet to be restored, even as tens of thousands of troops patrol the streets. The revocation of special status was expected to trigger widespread protests, but there is no word on how people have reacted to the news. BBC's Amir Pirzadeh in Srinagar managed to speak to correspondents in Delhi on Monday, said no one knows what is happening in other parts of the state. We can't talk to anyone else. People are concerned. They don't know what is happening. They don't know what is going to happen. The first point is, on the continuum of these sorts of attempts to control, and this Kashmir sits closer to Gaza and Xinjiang in that continuum. Newswires partially attributed the largest single rupee rise since 2013 to India revoking special status. It's last at 70.6945. I was writing about the zeitgeist in the context of Bitcoin, which has now crossed 12,000. And I was saying then, the zeitgeist of a time is its defining spirit or its mood. And capturing the zeitgeist of the now is not an easy thing because we are living in a dizzyingly fluid moment. And this is a tweet from Richard Haas, US-China trade war, hottest July ever, Hong Kong on the edge, odds of US-Iran, Turkish-Kurdish conflicts mounting, new India-Pakistan Kashmir crisis, Japan-South Korea Diplo-Echo confrontation, looming Brexit, the word disarray is too restrained to capture the world's deterioration. As I said in May, the baseline for the trade war is that it's headed off the charts into territory the market still continues a tail risk. And I think essentially we can see that the Chinese will not back down. And just as much as Xi probably misread Trump, Trump has misread Xi. We've spoken about the Chinese periphery being a tinderbox, and I've been reading Peter Frankopan, and in his second iteration of the Silk Roads, he doesn't mention Harold Mackinder, whose theory of global power was that the pivot region of the world's politics was not in Britain or its seaborne empire, but the vast area of Eurasia that stretched from the Volga to the Yangtze. He called it the heartland, and whoever controlled it, he argued, controlled the world. Terrorism is nothing new, but this sickeningly specific instantation of it, lone shooter, assault rifle, online manifesto, a link to a live stream appears to be contagious. New Yorker. Cloudflare still offers its protective services to 8chan. We're the FedEx of the internet, passing messages on, not looking inside the boxes, Cloudflare's head of policy told Forbes in March. Regarding the tariff war, 9th of July last year, I asked tariff wars who blinks first. I described it as a chicky run. Both race stolen cars towards the edge of a cliff. The first to eject out of his car is branded a chickie. October 2018, I was using the metaphor of the near collision with the USS Decatur, and I said, war is coming. December 2018, when there was that truce dinner in Buenos Aires, I wrote about that, and Huey and a diss. And then in the Mindspeak with Professor Howard French, in the Q&A, I specifically asked him questions regarding the Chinese response to Trump. My article over the weekend was What's Your Road, Man? What's Your Road, Man? Holy Boy Road, Madman Road, Rainbow Road, Guppy Road, any road. It's an anywhere road for anybody, anyhow. Where, buddy, how? I was, of course, referencing Jack Kerouac's On the Road. I spoke about Soros and Druckenmiller and that the Black Wednesday, 16th September 1992. I was asking whether we're at a very similar juncture. As I watched the pound fall like a stone, I could not help wondering if this sterling moment we're in now, we're now at 121.71. By the way, having been below 121, is precisely like it was in 1992, a no-brainer. Boris isn't bluffing. Every action, every appointment, every word since he entered number 10 signals the same thing. Britain is leaving the EU on 31st October. And I asked, the key question is, can Prime Minister Johnson self-eject Britain? Can he be stopped by Parliament? This is a political calculation. And he's elected to quite properly take an impossible is nothing can-do political posture, but the bottom line is, can he swing it? And if he can swing it politically, I was sort of saying that it then leaves us in facing down the whispering death of the foreign exchange markets. Michael Holding was thus nicknamed because he was exactly that when he opened the bowling for the West Indies. And really, in that sense, I'm asking, parity seems something that could possibly happen. I was also talking about the tariff warfare sanction and linguistic warfare specialist who slapped a 10% tariff on the remaining $300 billion of Chinese imports. The US 10-year sank below 190, entire German yield curve went negative, emerging market currencies in a tailspin, the market scooped up gold, the Swiss franc and the yen. And I said, President Trump keeps talking about weakening the dollar, but I find it curious that such a stable genius has yet to calculate that a strong dollar is infinitely better. And if he is serious about his warfare strategy, he needs to add currency warfare to his tariff, sanction, and linguistic warfare arsenal. The renminbi, of course, fell past 7 for the first time in 11 years. Currently, we're at 706.60 on the offshore markets. And the Chinese, in a plot twist, showed what could happen and are now trying to bring it back under control. It's like letting the horse loose and then trying to pull it up again. And as I wrote over the weekend, before all this happened, the most important currency to watch right now is the renminbi. This is a chart of the dollar renminbi from T Commodity, who's actually expecting it to go, the dollar to go higher. Currency markets, euro 112.03. We've had a strong bounce from 110.30. Certainly caught me off guard, but I think it's going to end soon. I think we had a lot of trades where people were borrowing in euros, investing in the rand and high-yielding currencies. As those currencies blew off, those positions got covered, in my view. Dollar index 97.528. Japanese yen up, going back up again at 106.63, having got to 107.10. That needs to be kept an eye on. Swiss franc 0.9749. The pound is at 121.74. Australian dollar also rebounding 0.6792. India rupee 70.65. South Korean won, that's really flopped, hasn't it? 12.14.40. Brazilian real 397.46. Egyptian pound, a real outlier in the emerging market currency space, 16.5497. And the rand 14.8276. That's come right back and looks as if it's going to go over 15. This is a dollar yen chart via Rich Economics. last at 106.61. Interesting, it seems to be correlated to a strengthening of the renminbi this morning. Dollar index, we've come down a little bit, largely because of the yen action and then the euro playing catch up, but I expect us to start turning higher again. Euro dollar, 112 the figure, and as I said, I think it's been a bit of short covering. Commodity markets, gold, which I kept thinking was going to draw down, but doesn't, 1460.75. Multi-year highs. Crude oil, $55.07. Copper prices have fallen to the lowest since 2017. And the move through the 7.1 per dollar psychological level is a big factor today. Previously, when I was talking about the US-China trade war going ballistic, I said I'm keen to buy the China EM negative feedback contagion loop. That has been positive for 2 decades, so it's a major turnaround now. The MSCI Emerging Markets Futures down a whopping 8.3% during the last 5 trading days. That's the China EM negative feedback loop I was talking about. IMF released a report on Zambia 2019, Article 4 consultation press release. Public investment has increased sharply. Economic growth remains well below levels seen earlier this decade, estimated at 3.7% in 2018. Depreciation of the currency late in 2018 and again this spring, coupled with food price rises, has pushed inflation above 8%. 78% debt to GDP. Reserves declined from 2.4 months of import cover to 1.9 months. Growth is projected to slow to 2% in 2019. Pretty hard-hitting. Zambia's Eurobonds took a hit of between 50 and 90 basis points as well yesterday. We've spoken about Zambia severally. South African all shares up 4.24% year to date, has given up some ground of late. Dollar Rand, this is from trader Petri, and I think the Rand's going to go over 15 again, and I think it's a perfect storm, the negative feedback loop phenomenon, increasing debt pile, and a lack of clear direction at the political level. Egyptian pound 16.55, EGX 30 up 4.32% year to date. Nigerian all share down 11.96% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 8.04% year to date. Diageo is spending £180 million on greener African operations, ploughing 180 million into green energy, water recovery solutions at 11 of its breweries across Africa, largest environmental investment in a decade, biomass boilers, solar installations, water recycling across 7 countries, including Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria. Andrew Cowan, CEO of Diageo, becoming 100% green is the ultimate goal. Africa is increasingly important, contributing 13% of Diageo's global turnover and about half of the company's beer sales. Here in Kenya, £15 million in upfront capital for solar, water treatment, biomass equipment, followed by £130 million in long-term supply and maintenance contracts. We think this will make us not just more green, but more local. $150 million investment in the Kisumu brewery, signing thousands of contracts with the local farmers to supply the white sorghum it uses to brew its cheapest beer, Senator Keg. They are positioning the business much closer to the ground, and it's working, I said. The Kisumu investment is tied at the hip with farmers producing sorghum for the factory, creating a bigger ecosystem. We believe this is one of the biggest single investments in addressing climate change across sub-Saharan African countries, Mr. Menezes said in a statement It demonstrates the strength of our commitment to pioneer grind to glass sustainability. EABL reported really strong full year results. Total dividend was up 13.33%, earnings per share was up 56.189%, and I wrote a muscular rebound, plain and simple. Headline revenue growth of 12.369% sums it up in a nutshell. Andrew Holness, I'm pleased to extend a warm Jamaican welcome to President Kenyatta, who's visiting on an official state visit. Kenya shilling firm 103.25. Nairobi all shares up 5.63% year to date, trading at a PE ratio of 11.5. Thank you for stopping by.